Shalom and welcome back to the sequential Zohar series. Today we are in Bereshit A, chapter 20, called The Five Groups in the Mixed Multitude. This is a strong chapter. It speaks about five forces that mix themselves into holiness and then block the spreading of spiritual wisdom. The language is sharp. It names the Nefilim, the Giborim, the Anakim, the Refaim, and the Amalekites. But for our purpose, we are not using this as a weapon against other people. We are reading it as spiritual anatomy. These five groups are also five inner forces. They are five distortions that can enter a person, a community, a movement, or even a sacred project. The Zohar says these forces cause the small hay to fall from its place. In Kabbalah, the hay is deeply connected with the revealed divine presence, the Shechinah, the place where the light comes down and becomes real in this world. So when the hay falls, it means holiness is still spoken about, but the living presence of holiness becomes hidden. The outer form remains, but the inner light becomes blocked. That is the main warning of this chapter. It is possible to speak spiritual words, build spiritual institutions, carry spiritual symbols, and still be serving ego. It is possible to look religious on the outside, while inwardly resisting the very wisdom that heals the world. The first force is Amalek. In the Zohar, Amalek is connected to violence, opposition, and the head of the shells, the klipot. Metaphysically, Amalek is not only an ancient enemy. Amalek is the cold force that attacks the soul exactly when the soul is trying to move toward the light. It is the voice that says, "Why bother?" It is the pressure that makes you forget your calling. It is the energy that turns holy fire into confusion, doubt, and heaviness. Amalek does not always appear as open evil. Sometimes Amalek appears as spiritual exhaustion. Sometimes it appears as mockery. Sometimes it appears as a subtle inner resistance to the dissemination of wisdom. When a person begins to share light, Amalek whispers, "Keep it hidden, make it smaller, do not speak, do not teach, do not rise." But the Zohar is revealing this force so we can recognize it. Once you recognize Amalek as the force of obstruction, you stop negotiating with it. You do not need to fight it with anger. You overcome it by staying faithful. You continue the work. You continue the prayer. you continue the teaching. You continue the repair. The second force is the Nefilim, the fallen ones. The Zohar connects them with the angels who look down on man and question why man should matter. They saw the weakness of human beings and accused humanity before the Creator. But the Creator told them that if they were placed in the same lower world, they would fall even more. This is a deep mystery. It is easy to judge from above. It is easy to criticize people when you are not carrying their body, their tests, their hunger, their confusion, their wounds, their temptations, and their history. The Nephilim are the force of spiritual pride. They believe they are above the human struggle. But when they enter the human realm, they fall into the very thing they judge. So, the Zohar is teaching humility. Never look at another soul and say, I would never fall like that. Never assume your height is permanent. The higher a person rises, the more humility is needed. True holiness does not make you arrogant. True holiness makes you careful, gentle, and aware of how much mercy you need every day. In daily life, the Nephilim force appears when someone gains a little spiritual knowledge and immediately starts looking down on others. They learn a little Torah, a little Kabbalah, a little prayer, a little discipline, and suddenly they become harsh. But if knowledge does not become compassion, it is not yet wisdom. If spiritual height does not become humility, it becomes a fall waiting to happen. The third force is the Giborim, the mighty ones. The Zohar connects them to the generation that built the tower and said, "Let us make a name for ourselves." This is one of the most confronting parts of the chapter. Because the Zohar says, they may build synagogues and houses of study. They may place the Torah scroll there with a crown on top. Everything may look holy, but the hidden intention is not for the Creator. It is to make a name for themselves. This is very relevant today. A person can build a platform, a ministry, a channel, a school, a community, or a spiritual brand, and the outer form can look beautiful. But the inner question is, for whom is it being built? Is it for the name of God, or is it for my name? Is it to reveal light, or to make people admire me? Is it to serve, or to be seen serving? The Giborim force is not strength itself. Strength can be holy. Leadership can be holy. Building can be holy. The corruption begins when strength becomes self-display. The corruption begins when the sacred vessel is used as a mirror for the ego. This is why intention matters. Before teaching, before posting, before speaking, before building, the soul has to return to the simple point. May this be for the sake of heaven. May this not be for my name. May this not be for applause. May this not be for control. May this become a clean channel for the light. The fourth force is the Refaim, the shades. The Zohar describes them as those who abandon Israel in a time of distress. Even when they have the power to help, they do not want to help. They separate from Torah and from those who study Torah. Spiritually, this is the force of deadness, not dramatic rebellion, but lifelessness, not open hatred, but absence of heart. The Refaim force appears when a person can help but chooses not to. It appears when someone sees another soul in difficulty and turns away. It appears when a community has knowledge but no compassion, resources but no courage, religious language but no living responsibility. This is a serious teaching. Sometimes the opposite of holiness is not obvious darkness. Sometimes the opposite of holiness is numbness. A numb person does not necessarily destroy with their hands. They destroy by withholding life. They destroy by being absent when presence is needed. The repair of the Refaim force is simple but demanding. Become alive again. Do not abandon the place where the light is struggling to appear. If someone is in distress and you have the power to strengthen them, strengthen them. If Torah is being ignored, honor it. If wisdom is being hidden, help reveal it. If the Shechinah is in exile, do not walk away. The fifth force is the Anakim, the giants. The Zohar says, they belittle those connected to Torah, and they bring the world back to tohu and bohu, formlessness and void. This is a very deep image. The Anakim are giant forces, but they use their size to make holiness seem small. They magnify the ego and shrink the sacred. In the soul, this is the voice that says Torah is not important. Prayer is not important. Purity is not important. Inner work is not important. Divine wisdom is old. irrelevant, unnecessary, too small for the modern world. That is Anakim energy. It does not always attack holiness directly. It belittles it until people stop honoring it. And when holiness is belittled long enough, the world returns to chaos. Not because the light disappears, but because the vessels stop respecting the light. Without reverence, the center collapses. Without Torah, wisdom becomes opinion. Without prayer, desire becomes noise. Without humility, power becomes domination. This is why the Zohar links this force to the destruction of the temple. The temple is not only a building. The temple is the ordered center of the world. It is the place where heaven and earth meet. When the inner temple is intact, life has direction. When the inner temple is destroyed, everything becomes scattered, reactive, and empty. So chapter 20 is not just describing negative forces outside us. It is asking us to examine what is mixed into our own service. Is there Amalek in me, resisting the spread of light? Is there Nefilim in me, judging others from a false height? Is there Giborim in me, building holy things for my own name? Is there Refaim in me, becoming numb when I should help? Is there Anakim in me, belittling the very wisdom that could restore my soul? This is not a message of shame. It is a message of purification. The Zohar exposes these forces because whatever is exposed can be repaired. The hidden mixture is more dangerous than the revealed flaw. Once you can name the obstruction, you can separate from it. This is why this chapter belongs near the beginning of Bereshit. Creation is not only about how the world began. It is about how the world keeps being rebuilt. Every day, a world is formed by our intention. Every day, a world is damaged by mixture. And every day, a world can be restored by returning to the light. And the main separation is intention. The mixed multitude represents mixture. Holiness mixed with ego. Service mixed with self-interest. Wisdom mixed with pride. Strength mixed with domination. Silence mixed with cowardice. Discernment mixed with judgment. The work is to purify the mixture until the channel becomes clean. A clean channel does not mean a perfect person. It means a person who keeps returning to the Creator. A person who checks the heart, a person who does not use the sacred for personal inflation, a person who wants the light to be revealed, even if nobody claps for them. This chapter also teaches why spreading spiritual wisdom is so important. The synopsis says these negative forces oppose the dissemination of Kabbalah, the soul of the Torah. That means when the inner light of Torah is revealed, the shells lose power. When people understand the soul behind the commandments, the depth behind the words, and the mercy behind the structure, confusion begins to break. This is why the sharing of wisdom must be guarded with humility. Kabbalah is not meant to make a person feel superior. It is meant to awaken love, awe, responsibility, and repair. If a person studies the secrets and becomes more arrogant, they are still in mixture. But if a person studies the secrets and becomes more devoted, more gentle, more truthful, and more aligned with the Creator, then the small hay begins to rise again. And this is the beautiful hope inside a very intense chapter. The Zohar says that when the light appears, the forces of darkness cannot remain in the same way. Light does not need to argue with darkness. Light simply reveals what is real. When the soul returns to God with sincerity, the false structures begin to lose their grip. So, the practical meditation from this chapter is this. Before I build anything, may I build it for heaven. Before I speak wisdom, may I speak it with humility. Before I judge another person, may I remember my own need for mercy. Before I turn away from someone in distress, may I become alive in compassion. Before I belittle the sacred, may I remember that the temple of the world is held together by reverence. The 5 groups in the mixed multitude are 5 warnings, but also 5 gates of repair. Against Amalek, stay faithful. Against Nefilim, stay humble. Against Giborim, serve for the name of God, not your own name. Against Refaim, stay alive and present. Against Anakim, honor Torah and do not belittle the light. When these repairs happen, the fallen hay begins to rise. The Shechinah is no longer pushed down by mixture. The soul becomes a place where divine presence can rest again, and the person becomes a quiet vessel through which wisdom, mercy, and truth can enter the world. That is the work. not to accuse everyone else, not to search for enemies outside, but to purify the inner vessel so the light can pass through without distortion. The more the vessel is cleansed, the more the world is repaired. May the Creator help us recognize every mixture within ourselves. May our prayer be clean, our service humble, our teaching pure, and our strength surrendered to heaven. May the small hay rise from exile. May the Shechinah be restored, and may the hidden light of Torah spread through the world with mercy, clarity, and peace. Shalom.